Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I'm Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network, and we are coming to you live from the Mighty Beard Tavern. And I am joined by my awesome co-host. We got Alpha Soul.
Great to be here. Let's get this show on the road.
All right, and Crojack.
I feel a little lonely, I gotta say.
There's more room at the table now.
There's way more room at the table. It's just the three of us. It feels weird.
True.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the waitress will be able to bring us our drinks because there's less of an order now. I don't know.
See, Stormslord hogs our attention all the time and doesn't let us get an order in. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's got to be what it is. It's got to be what it is. Anyway, Stormslord is away this week. He is at the, I think PAX East is where he's at right now.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
Yep.
yep. PAX East.
Yeah, so I'm hoping he's having a lot of fun there. We know he's not having fun with Intrepid because they're not there.
Nope.
Which I think
For this time, it's a good thing.
probably is. I'm really glad I didn't pull the trigger with tickets then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of a thing. But we got a fun show planned for you guys this evening, and we really got to get into it because, like last week, we were inundated with news, which
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a problem, but
Can't complain.
yeah, no. Considering the months and months of shows we did with zero news, to actually have a lot to talk about and go, I don't know if we'll fit it all in, is a welcome change. So,
Oh, yeah.
we got a new Know Your Nodes, Advance and Destroy. Again, as I always say, a lot of this is actually a rehash of information, but it's a good thing. I actually had to go on Reddit.
Consolidation.
Yes. There's one of our major complaints, and we'll talk about it later, but one of our major complaints early on was information was so scattered. Like, there's information because, it was on a wiki here, or it was on an interview here, or a random stream conversation over here, you know?
Yeah.
It was very hard to get up-to-date information as an average person, much less as a content creator. I know I've done videos and stuff like that. I'm sure Crojack has as well, where we're like,
You're
say
going to
something-
all these sources to like compile the information.
Yes. Or worse yet, someone comes back to you and be like, you're out of date. You know, they already said this. I'm like, where did they say that? Oh, well,
Right.
there was a random stream that Steven hopped on to, you know, last week. And I was like, wow. Anyway, so this is a good thing overall, but they did have some nuggets of information, as well as the first developer diary on the Node tool, which is kind of neat as well. And if we have time, we have a stream recap. Yes.
Yep.
Before we hop into that, I got to give a shout out to our awesome Twitch and patron subs. We actually have 3 new patrons this week. We have Midnight Joker and Jondar, as well as Darkwater. And I know Darkwater does a lot of, well, he's starting to get back into streaming. So if you guys want to go check him out as well, you should check out him. It's Darkwater_Ebenrose on Twitch.
He's a beauty. He's in my streams all the time. He's an absolute beauty.
Yes. Yeah. You know, and he's actually in here now. There he is. Woo! So great. So happy about that. We also got a ton of 5-star reviews. Actually, we're up to like 76 5-star reviews so far across the U.S. and everywhere else. In fact, we got, I just got a notification that we got a review out of Canada. Canada.
The fabled land that doesn't actually exist.
Yes.
There's nothing north of the U.S. There's nothing there.
No.
It's a bunch of snow and igloos and polar bears.
Well, I swear this one had to be for Crojack because it's from Hawkstash. He goes, I look forward to listening to this every week. Keep it up. I can't wait to get my hands on the game. I hope it's Legend. Wait for it. Dairy. Yeah. So there you go. That's a 5-star review from Hawkstash out of Canada. We also had, let's see, 3 of them out of the United States. Hazio, Cadron33. Cadron's amazing. I love Cadron. And Arkward89. Cadron goes, Aggelos, Storms, Alpha, and Crojack are awesome. As a weekly listener, I know I'm going to get up-to-date information about Ashes, the Devil's Advocate approach, gives alternate views as well as some laughable moments. Love that they keep it real even when the news isn't what everyone wanted. I think they're talking about the live
letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
like, years from now, I'm gonna look back on that and hopefully laugh one day. Hopefully laugh about all the mayhem that happened.
When we're
early on in
playing
his
the
career.
game, we'll go back and talk
Yes.
about
Yeah.
the letter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't live without it from Hasio. An easily confused potato. I greatly rely on the Dungeon Crawler Network to help me break down and analyze the latest news of the rising MMO Ashes of Creation. Unfiltered, unbiased, and unable to stop watching. I swear this guy writes like professional reviews.
He should.
Yeah. Aggelos and his weekly cohorts dive into every aspect of the game, the good, the bad, and the really bad, but always give the fun and personal atmosphere. You won't regret giving these guys a listen to if you're even remotely interested in this game. Thank you all for your hard work. Really awesome review. Thank you so much. And of course, Arc Ward 89. I am so glad I found you guys. I'm looking for someone to cover. I have been looking for someone to cover this game in depth. So great source of info, 5-star reviews. Thank you so much, guys. And we are getting closer to that giveaway as well because we still got a couple weeks, but I really appreciate those reviews. It was really nice. Thank you so much for that. Okay. I think it's time that we just jump into the news.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's
do
go.
this. Know your nodes. Okay, so we got a new blog post out on the site continuing the nodes explanation. Now, again, a lot of this is rehashed stuff. There was some actually nice artwork. I'm going to take it back to the artwork a little bit.
Yeah.
I love the building structures.
Yeah.
As much as I hate the armor design, the actual building design is gorgeous.
And I think that building design will lend you to believe that armor's design down the road will go along the ways you want.
I hope so. I really do. I mean, well, you saw my character at BDO. I'm wearing essentially plate. It's elegant plate mail, but it's
traditional.
Yeah, it's functional. I just like because that's fur around the top.
All about to fur.
Yeah. You know, dead fox hanging off my shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Fushi. Yeah.
Fushi.
Love you, Foosh. Seriously, fox. Anyway, awesome artwork. I'm really glad about that. It looks really neat. Anyway, a couple of the things that I noticed right off the bat that I want to jump into is that new information that node-specific buildings start to appear around node level 3, which is the what is that? The village stage?
Village.
Yeah.
Yep.
Village.
So you'll that's also when we get the player government, but depending on what kind of node it is, which gives a utility, military, economic, divine, scientific, is when we start getting more of those buildings in place. Yes.
Remember a massive debate regarding nodes, like weeks and weeks and weeks ago, about RNG behind node creation as to what kind of node it is?
Yes, I remember that. We had that discussion. Yeah.
So if we don't know what kind of node buildings we get until stage 3, what? If it's RNG, day 1, moment 1, like on Genesis, if it's RNG for node type, you won't know until stage 3? How long does that take to develop?
I don't
know. I don't think that's the case. I think
that can't be. That makes no sense.
No. I think it's per like node type. You get a special building type.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be able to tell right away what the node is because the NPCs that show up in the expedition stage, which is stage 1,
might have robes if it's a religious node, or have some armor if it's a military node.
Correct.
Okay, that can make sense.
Glasses, Poindexter, scientific, whatever.
Yeah, I love the way you did that.
Poindexter, like just glasses pushers, pocket protectors. Let's go.
This is clearly a scientific node.
No,
they
we're
talk
military,
with a real
we swear.
nasally voice, like
100%.
Yeah, I love it. So you'll be able to know, and I know they said the nodes are fixed in that whatever certain nodes grow, they'll always be that node. So if a node pops up by the river, it's always going to be that type of node. I'm still hoping what they do is they put 4 nodes in a ZOI that when one grows up, it takes over, but that there's a possibility of having all 4 within a region. It just, maybe random of which one you get. I hate the idea that the node is set that the one by the river is always military.
That sucks. That's not a fun way of doing it.
Yes,
Not fun at
because
all.
then it's like, well, I want military. I'm going to run up there, and that's where it's going to be. Now, if you go up there, and they have fixed nodes, so let's say by the river, by the mountain, in the valley, and then down in the swamps, but it's all within a relatively close enough region. You experience in the node, and then it's like, crap, I got the swamp node, which is, I don't know, whatever, religious.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, that would make it more of a, the movement of the world would be more than I fear a static node placement is going to do. A static node placement in 2 years' time will be on a wiki, and someone will just go, well, if you want a military node, here's a list of all military nodes.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, more than likely, yeah, that's going to happen. The alternative is if you do that system that you're talking about, then we'll burn down our town until we get what we want, basically.
Yeah, but
Right.
it still requires you to put resources in, and it also brings you up to a possibility of becoming a vassal node, because while you're burning your village down, someone else says, I don't really care, and keeps going.
Now, the one downside of the system you mentioned, where let's say in your ZOY, the military spawns by the mountain and the merchant spawns by the forest, blah, blah, blah. The only thing that happens is, what if I wanted the merchants by the mountain? Or what if I wanted the religion by the mountain? Can't do that.
Yeah, which
That kind of feels bad.
I feel like what's going to happen is it's going to be meta'd to the point where it's like, listen, best merchant guild's right here because it's right.
Yeah.
It's essentially Bree at the crossroads.
And maybe they design it where they put the merchants ones in relatively smart locations. Near water, near roads,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Maybe. Maybe. But I
We'll
mean, then again, it still serves the same problem unless the nodes are literally right next to each other, you know, like boom,
Yeah.
boom. And it's like you randomly, you hit this one, which is 10 feet down the road. You know, Velia gets moved 10 feet in BDO.
What's probably going to happen? They're going to have a loadout in each spot for all the 4 types.
I can see it.
That's the only fair way to make it happen. Because that way you could have your merchant node right by the river, or your military node right by the river. Whether you want boats for military purposes or you want boats for merchant purposes, you have the opportunity for either.
Yes.
Well,
Well-
probably can do it all in one spot.
Are we also forgetting about the zone of influence, though, as well, too? So, well, no, I guess it doesn't matter.
The idea is
Yeah.
within the problem that we're seeing with it being a static group is the fact that whenever it's static, that node by the river will always be whatever it was originally designed
It allows
to be.
for min-maxing and metagaming.
Yeah. Well, then it also becomes, if
Well-
you want to be a navy and you like have a military navy, there's only one military node by the river, and that's that one. You know.
No, okay,
Options are
that
good.
makes a little more sense. I don't think that whatever you do, it's not going to prevent meta.
No,
gaming,
100%.
Right. So, I mean, I would argue that if you move to a system that, you know, you either choose or it's random, you actually make the problem worse, right?
See,
Because then it puts more pressure on, I guess you could say, on Intrepid.
Re-rolling, burn it down, re-roll it, burn
Well,
it down until we get what
Right.
we want.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, on top of that, what if, for some reason or another, a server is predominantly military, and you know, it just so happens that the meta for better battle at one particular time is military. Well, then everyone just rolls a military node, right?
except for the fact that you need the other nodes to advance
Fast travel
your
is nice.
character.
Right, because the religious one is all about the
Right.
buffs, and the merchant one's all about... What was the merchant one about, aside from merchant?
Construction, I think.
Construction and artisan.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of important.
Yeah, artisan. No, it was artisan and trade, I think it was. And
Yeah.
then scientific was construction and
Right.
Incentivize people to make all the different node types.
and here's the thing. We don't know about the burn it down. And we'll get to this because they talk about node atrophy. What if you had to wait for your node to atrophy? Like you couldn't actually destroy it at stage 1 or 2. It had to be a town stage to be siegeable. So therefore you had to wait.
Yeah.
That would, if they kept the RNG side, it would be harder to metagame that because it's like, well, I want that node, but now I have to wait for the atrophy.
Yeah, how long was that going to take? We talked about what if you wanted the military node and pop-up comes a science node. How long do you have to wait for that to drop to re-roll it? Or do
Yeah.
you just go over there and try on that spot?
Right, and I think that what may happen, and that's why I'm hoping each ZOI has the capability. I don't care if the node.
Wait, sorry, redo that again.
Okay.
I missed that.
You're hoping for a military node.
Yeah.
Yes.
You do your grind, you get your experience. Boom, it pops up. It's a science node. Crap, I can't just burn it to the ground because sieges is towns only, right?
I think
Towns
so.
up. I believe it's
and I might be wrong on that, but what if that is? Even if it's not, how much money is it going to be so cost prohibitive to start over because you're paying a fair amount of resources to get it up there? I don't think you can actually siege till village nodes, or I hope they can.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I see what you're saying. But we're talking about a hypothetical here, right?
Yeah.
It
You
is
really want that military node.
It is hypothetical, but the idea is if everything is static, right?
Yeah.
That essentially it becomes an issue where, okay, this ZOI here is always military, even though I would much rather have it be a trade node. And without them essentially creating 4 invisible nodes that randomly pick what they're going to be, I don't care if the exact placement, and I see chat saying siege doesn't start till 3, so yeah, you're waiting on atrophy at that point.
Right.
But if it's guaranteed every time, then what's the point? I mean, the only time it's going to be exciting really is the first time when no one knows, but within the first 3 months, the entire map and every node is going to be,
categorized
and
calculated,
we're going
and
to
all
know
that.
where everything is. I really think they need to keep that RNG.
I think if you RNG it though, you have to cap how many nodes. So say for example, they have the 100 nodes, 25 military, 25 blah blah blah, 25. I think you have to keep it at that ratio. If you don't, then you just, because I don't buy the idea that because in order to successfully siege, you're going to have an equal amount of nodes that are of different types. Because even if you look at classes today, you need, the Holy Trinity to run dungeons. And yet you constantly in every single game run across, what is it? An absence of tanks, first and foremost, and healers. Second, everyone wants to damage. Everyone wants to kill, right?
You're going to see that in the cities. I bet you there's going to be less religious nodes. If there was a choice, there would be less religious nodes than military nodes.
There probably would.
Guessing.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I think that would be the case.
Excited about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
I can't
like
wait to see their answers to some of these problems.
Yeah.
I want to see what Intrepid has to say about some of these problems. I'm curious.
Well, the good thing is that it's not technically set in stone yet. I mean,
Exactly.
once we get in alpha, we'll see how it works. And, I'm pretty sure they'll listen if it comes to the fact that we need to change it to a random system.
Yeah, in Alpha 2, when you've got a bunch of servers going and you can see the rise and fall of all of this, they can take a look at their whole system and go, okay, this is not working. And they can tweak things and change things, right?
Yeah. And I normally, like I said, I normally don't address chat room during the podcast, but for this particular chat room was saying, I thought an interview with Tad said that they're working on procedural generation for city setups. That is correct, and we are going to get to that part within the show, but that only refers to building placement, not what it is, whether it's a military, scientific,
or where it is,
or
in the
where.
world.
Yeah. The node where a city can spawn is always static. How things get placed is random based on that tool. Anyway, let's move on because we're running out of time already. I know. It's a beautiful thing. Societies and organizations appear at Node 4. These are things, I'm only highlighting things that we didn't really know or were very vaguely placed.
Yeah.
Again, if you're listening to this podcast or watching it live, there will be a link to our blog post description. That's where you should go to see all the hyperlinks. If you're listening to us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud, any of those places, there is a link in the bottom that will take you to the blog post so you can read the whole thing if you haven't done so already. But at Node 4 is when we start seeing the additional things such as Thieves Guild and Merchants Guild.
With ranking structures for players who participate in. So you could actually go into the Thieves Guild and start ranking up your Thieves Guild rep or ranking up your rank inside of it.
Correct.
At stage 4.
Yeah,
cool.
And I think that's neat that they're not going to appear until later. So that's going to force people who are into that type of progression to migrate to these servers. And there's a cat.
And again, a node-centric system. They keep saying everything is node-centric, and here's another example. You need Sage 4 for this stuff.
Relics appear at node level 5, which is the city. We don't know a whole lot about relics yet, but
No, we don't.
I believe relics are important to the creation of legendary items.
Like crafting and such, eh?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Remember we talked about for the legendary section how the Metropolis has made materials that you'll need to make your legendary blah blah blahs, and you'll need these materials from different Metropolis types most likely. So maybe starting at the city stage, you need bits from the Metropolis city or the market city, the science city, the military city.
Right.
These relics.
And then of course we have a superpower that appears at node 6.
Flight,
That's what I'm
super
thinking.
strength, X-ray vision.
Able to jump over large buildings with a single bound.
Superpower.
We
Interesting.
don't know what that is, but it makes sense in the form of if you are a metropolis, you are a superpower of the region. Whatever
Right.
that superpower is, though, is fascinating to me.
There's so many options. Is it superpowers for citizens? Is it superpowers for the leader of the metropolis? Does he get a superpower?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be so much on the character side as something that you can do to affect the region itself. Like fast travel for scientific nodes are linked trade posts in I think that may be more
Like,
I don't know.
let's pick an example. 1 week cooldown where on the scientific node you can transport a large mass of people from one part of the map to the other. Or a daily cooldown where you can instantly move a caravan as a market node from one spot to another. That kind of a superpower. That's more city focused.
Man, I have no clue. I'm interested to hear. Yeah.
It could be anything.
Yeah, I don't. I almost want to think it's going to be something along the lines like a city buff that you can give out to
That could be cool.
everybody.
Yeah, sure.
But I feel like it has to be, in my head, I see the superpower as something that is going to be more linked to whatever aspect the node is, whether it's military or whatever.
Right.
You know what? Maybe it's the word. As soon as you hear the word superpower, you think super strength, laser beam eyeballs, flying. Maybe it is something different, but they just kind of chose a poor word here to describe it.
I don't know.
They've used in even some of the older node videos, like nodes 1 and 2, not 3.
Yeah.
That, not 3, that the metropolis is supposed to have this influence, this
Yes.
Yeah.
touch across an entire section of the world. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a rally point, or I don't know, like a superpower that can be invoked in terms of military node, for instance. When a siege happens, they can use it and summon a bunch of elite NPCs to help guard the city.
Yep.
You know, like a Roman legion, summoning a special legion in order to help fight.
Yeah, something with a cooldown.
You know, it'd be interesting. They didn't tell us a whole lot other than the fact that a superpower does appear, and I know that a lot of it really. I don't know, the cynical part of me, the lazy developer part of me goes. I really think this is just their fancy way of saying this is how you get fast travel, or this is how you get a region-wide auction house.
Yeah, that's they call them superpowers. They call them whatever. You're right.
Yeah, I almost feel like that's what it's going to end up being.
Then why bother call them superpowers? Like, why give them the name? Again, this naming convention seems off to me.
Yeah. This is something that's actually interesting, and I'm not sure if it's a limitation of the tool that we're going to talk about later. Or if it's a choice, but racial buildings change at each node leveling up.
Oh man. So I was a little bit disappointed when I heard that.
Me too.
Only because what I was envisioning in my head is, yeah, they've always said before that, you know,
predominant race
would be there. But what I had in mind was, let's say you have a level, you know, 1 elf, you know, village or whatever the heck you're calling
we would
it.
never do that because I'd burn it to the ground.
Fine, expedition stage, orc, Renkai, right? Fine.
Yep.
But then a whole bunch of elves move in, right?
Uh-huh.
And then, you know, help level up that node to the next level. What I expected was a lot of the original influence of those Renkai orcs to still be there.
Like
right?
the original
But then the
buildings.
new buildings. Exactly.
Old
Right, that's
Town is
what I expected.
Renkai, but New Town is Elf.
Yes.
Exactly. Right? And then as
could you
the
imagine that from a programming development standpoint?
Really,
Yeah,
would it be
I know.
that hard?
But
No,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
seriously, is it really that hard? The building from a coding side only has a tag on it that says
Yeah, you're right.
hut
You just have
underscore Renkai.
this zone,
Yeah.
the original zone that eventually, because then what happens is you have Renkai mansions because they were the first ones there, and as it progresses, they're the mansions. You've got Renkai mansions flanked by Elven, slightly less than mansions, flanked by humans, slightly less than that. And it becomes this weird, like, inner ring of just races everywhere.
right, I definitely understand your point there, but to me that still more
Makes
speaks
sense.
to the history of that
Yeah.
of that note.
From
You
a
know,
realism immersion kind of standpoint, those Renkai
Right.
buildings all of a sudden are elf buildings? Did we just scrap them all to the ground and build elf buildings in the second stage?
right. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. So it's like, yeah,
It takes
So-
away
Maybe they
from
did.
the history that city
Of a
would
town.
have had
right.
prior to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something maybe if we can convince the devs, like in the development process,
Yeah.
right? If we can convince the developers to leave
I would
those
love to see
integral
that.
racial
Yeah.
things, that's great.
If this tool that they're going to have is as robust as what they were talking about later, I don't see why they couldn't. There's no reason why not when the new buildings get added, they just have the asset tag that they put on there. Why does it have to be everything changes?
Because they have the assets for every single building of every single race at every single stage. They have all those art assets. So what they have to do
Yeah.
is call upon those assets and place them there and keep them there as it progresses.
They just don't have to remove the tag. That's literally all they have to do.
We have to do this.
Yeah.
It might make for some funky looking towns though.
What city doesn't?
True enough.
I mean,
right? every
Yeah.
city's got its old rundown section of orc villages, orc portions, right?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
If any
Let's
city
do it.
you
Let's
go
do
to,
it.
it's gonna change. You go
That's
to
how cities work in real life.
yeah.
Yep.
They start out in a certain way. They have a certain influence. I mean, if you go to the old parts of Philadelphia, for instance, you have that very English-inspired buildings because it was owned. And then after the Revolution, you start seeing the more colonial buildings build up on the outside. And then as, you know, they start tearing those down, you still see parts of old cities being there as they rip it out and put new ones
Right.
up. I was in London the other month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I think it was 3 months, November. And you have in the center of old London, you have all these amazing like stone and like marble churches. And then right next to it, they have the Pickle, which is this giant steel and glass monstrosity right next to it.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's if you show me a street or a block in New York, I will tell you what neighborhood that's from. And that's because of the influence behind it. You know, Williamsburg, completely different from downtown Manhattan, completely different from, heck, West Village in Manhattan, East Village in Manhattan. They all look different depending on it. And I think that's a cool feature to kind of have within it. What's up?
You're a whole buttload of elves, and you move into this orc space, and you help level it up. You take it over, and now it's time to redo your town hall. Look at the old town hall because you leveled up your node, but realistically, you look at your old town hall. You're like, all right, let's make a bigger town hall. This town hall is not big enough for this town. And you look at this orc architecture. Are you, as a whole boatload of elves, going to keep the orc architecture and level up the orc architecture into even better orc architecture? Or are you going to put your elvish turn on it?
It depends. I mean,
Because like we said, every time the node levels, the old buildings become bigger and better because the houses turn into mansions eventually. And then the new buildings are the smaller versions of that. So those old buildings have to be improved upon, made bigger, made better as the town progresses. Why would elves leave the orcs there? Why would dwarves leave the elves there?
Because they don't own the buildings. Old families may still own them. And
You want to go that hardcore?
I'm really going that hardcore.
These are elven buildings. We were here first. We're not leaving. You can't kick us out, dwarves. These are our buildings.
Unless they program the ability to have like a pogrom in the entire thing, it's not going to happen. Which I'm fine with.
But the only reason these could change, these cities could change, is because a boatload of a new race comes in. And if they want to change the old buildings when this baby upgrades, they might just change those old buildings.
Yeah, but you didn't see that in New York, for instance.
I know, but this is a magical fantasy world with magic and wizards and baloney.
You're right, but when a group moves in, they don't want to mess with the architect. All right, here's a fun part. We talked about this in pre-show. We're going to talk a little bit about tax law, all right?
Oh, God.
Hold on a second. For those of you who don't know who are on the podcast, Aggelos just sat up in his seat, basically.
I had to get it. Let's go. Let's talk a little bit about taxes, okay? You move into a new city, you're going to tear down those orc buildings and that orc infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Well, someone's going to have to pay for new infrastructure, and who's going to want to pay for new infrastructure when they just want to keep going? Like, that doesn't happen.
Okay, if in magical Christmas land, the perfect solution, orcs there, elves come in, levels up, that orc stuff becomes an elf-orc hybrid. It becomes a bit bigger with new elven furnishings on the original orc architecture. But from a developing standpoint, that sounds like a nightmare. Having all these hybrid combinations of stuff, that sounds insane. You can't do that. Like, I couldn't imagine them making art assets for all the possible combinations out there.
I think they probably already would, and that's...
Oh, man, it's a lot of work.
I don't... the custom for hybriding things, I could see that, but I think from the keeping of the buildings, I still believe...
I'm down with it.
And you see this in the real world, as you said with New York, when the Irish came, looking at you there, Crojack, when the Irish came, you stayed together, because as you came over...
Yeah,
you wanted to maintain that. Yeah, and that's where you get things like Chinatown. You get Little Italy, like, because the people.
It makes sense.
We don't care that you're big orcs over there.
Yeah.
We're fine. We're gonna move into our own little city and create our own little sub ghetto, if you will, because it's elves. And I hate elves.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. You focus all together, and you also have to remember that you're looking at it from a game perspective. From a real life perspective, we know the first houses in there are going to be mansions, right?
Yeah.
In game, if you're not breaking the fourth wall, what's preventing you from building a mansion? Like, they're just going to assume we're going to be the pretty part of town. You're looking at the game perspective rather than the lore perspective, which it's a game still, but I really, if you look at where in some other cities where quote unquote where the high society was at one point in time, that's no longer the case. They're either government buildings or they're moved out of, and now all of the rich people now have a different, like, the rich people don't live in LA, they live in Hollywood, which is a suburb of I think that's where it's close enough anyway. Like, they move out, they make their own gated communities outside, and that's where their mansions are.
Chat brought up an interesting point. Just a quick aside. If a bunch of Talnar come up above ground, settle in a node, and they're the predominant race, I would love to see Talnar buildings and Talnar architecture in the above world. It has to happen. They have to have art assets for that. It could happen in the world.
I don't see what's preventing that.
They need to be prepared for that possibility of Talnar coming up and going, we want this town.
Mrs. Astor would never allow that. Please tell me you got the Futurama reference.
I've not seen that episode.
With the mutants in the sewers coming up out of the
sewer.
yeah.
Okay, yep. Gotcha.
Get back to your sewers. Yeah, all right.
We're never getting this podcast done. This is going to be a 5-hour podcast.
Anyway. All right, we're going to move on from the racial abilities. That was fun. Events and accomplishments. This is something that is new. At least I've not heard anywhere before. The experience granted to nodes by players can be modified by certain events and accomplishments within a node. The loss of a war can hinder growth by reducing the incoming experience, whereas a victory may increase the incoming experience. The successful completion of a new trade agreement with another node can boost incoming experience from the completion of commerce-specific quests or achievements. This system is designed to encourage success and cooperation within the citizenship of a node to aid in the ultimate growth of that node. This was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm actually reading a book, which Alpha Soul, you need to read it. It's called The Land. It's a lit RPG. You'll love it. You'll love it. Seriously. There's like 8 books. You'll love it. And in the book, he talked about there was an attack upon the main character's village, and he happened to win. But because he won, he got what was called a war leader boost, where everyone who was around him during times of battle got a morale boost. But the note on the quest icon when it popped up said if you had lost, you would have earned the title Fool at War, and it would have been a morale decrease to have you in a battle.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
This is you launch a siege against another node and lose, you then have an experience deficit against your node.
And commerce. It mentioned something about income as well.
Yeah.
Did it mention commerce? So, you know what sucks? Kind of annoys me, the whole vassal node system, because I am a guild master in charge of a town that's stuck at town because that stupid node in my ZOY is one stage ahead of me, and I can't progress until that stupid node progresses, and I can never be a metropolis. So I got to go and enlist someone else from another ZOY to siege that thing, to get it down, so I can become the king node in my ZOY. What this system does is I can form relations with other guilds in other ZOY and say, yo, here's a plan. You guys are going to siege this stupid big castle down so I can become the big guy. To help me become the big guy after that, we'll make a trade agreement. That will increase my XP. So bring that guy down, we trade agreement, I get the XP boost, and we become the new king node in our ZOY. This creates that kind of potential political thing going on between all these ZOYs as people fight for being the big node in their ZOY.
I freaking love it.
I love it.
I love it.
Let's
so
go.
Much. I love it so much. That was really neat. I think that's neat. Let's talk about how you destroy a node and de-level it. Node atrophy was something that was new to me. I sort of knew about it.
They mentioned a way of if you don't do anything in your node, it's just going to degrade.
Yeah,
right.
it returns to nature.
Yeah.
This is how nodes that aren't upkept disappear. So you're not going to see a whole bunch of level 1 nodes everywhere because eventually people are going to move on and then it atrophies and goes back to nothing.
Yeah.
It goes, all nodes have an experience deficit that accumulates daily. The deficit is based on the current level of the node. Experience earned is applied to the deficit. Then any excess is added to the node's experience pool. At the end of the day, any remaining deficit is subtracted from the node's experience pool. If the deficit would cause the node to drop under the required experience for its level, certain flags will appear to notify the citizens that all is not well in their node. After a short period, if the atrophy is not addressed, the node will then de-level.
So what the developers are going to have to figure out through the alpha testing is how much negative XP each day is a good level where a reasonable amount of people that are reasonably expected to play can surpass, no problem. Right? Where they put that bar so that if there's just no one in the node, it's going to de-level. But if there's an average amount of people doing an average amount of work, they're in the clear, no problem, it's fine.
Right. I think it's like
there in case people abandon nodes.
Right. In other words, I don't think it should ever be to the point where you're at a metropolis and you're stressing out. I got to log in, so I got to earn experience for this, so that we can maintain and keep it the same way.
But the thing is, it's dependent upon the level of the node. I'm sorry,
it gets harder as you go up.
Yeah. My town that has 2,000 people. Waste management can be done by probably 2 guys. You're not seeing that in New York.
Right.
I think what's going to happen is the more people that are citizens of the node, a higher percentage of people need to be active within a node, because experience deficit requires that many more people.
You can make it based off of number of players. You can make it based off of the node type, right? A metropolis just needs a higher percentage of XP than, let's say, a village.
Oh yeah,
I think I think that's true to a point. But what I mean, I think what they're trying to do is this. Like, let's say you have a metropolis, right? And you have 5,000 people who are citizens of that node, and they're in the metropolis. Let's just say something goes awry, right? And I don't know, Hands of Fate gets into an argument with this other guild, right? And we decide, you know what? We don't want to be here in this node anymore. Let's pack up and move. All of a sudden, 200, 300 people leave the node, right? Or whatever, or 1,000, let's just say 1,000 people leave the node,
sure,
right? Unless you have people who actually come to that node, organically replacing that EXP lost probably means that you won't be able to maintain
Probably not
a metropolis, right?
And that's cool.
That's what happens, though, because then the city people shrink to the borders which they can maintain, and then the outskirts of the city die. But that doesn't make it a metropolis anymore when then it goes down to the old city.
Right, that's what I mean. But I mean, I expect that number or that ability to be organic, if you will. Like, if you advance to a level 5 node, it's not because you put in a whole bunch of work through it. It's because you had a lot of people there, and combined through their natural playing, they actually caused it to advance. Right.
You definitely want to put systems in place to encourage people to participate in metropolises, or else if those populations don't maintain a certain level, they're just going to diminish. So you definitely want to have reasons for people to be around metropolises and to help metropolises.
Right. And this may be the factor. Yeah. This may be their method, the atrophy of preventing, your power gamers or power levelers from just mass throwing everything in, hoping to get a metropolis and lock it down, because obviously you can't keep that up forever. Right.
And part of this is also based off the vassal system too, because as long as people are in your vassals and they meet their gap, any excess comes to you as well.
Right.
So basically, it comes down to the whole zone of influence and how healthy it is in terms of population and population activity. If there was a lot of population, but over the course of the MMO's lifespan, people start quitting the game and stop playing, the overall population's activity is going to decrease, and that'll bring down that node and that zone of influence as overall experience, and then de-level some stuff.
As we move on here, I wanted to highlight this because it's pretty neat. Nahlas in chat goes, it's a long shot and art to get done, but if there was a scenario happen that a metropolis started to decrease from previous form, it would be really cool if during that point the buildings on the exterior start to degrade.
It did say it'll give the node a flag for a period of time to let them know, yo, there's some bad stuff going on right now. This isn't good. You guys gotta fix something. So could that flag not be a literal UI element flag, 'cause that sucks, but could it be a visual element, like you said, where the outskirts are busting down, are breaking down? That'd be sweet.
Node de-leveling, which you talked about a little bit. It'll return to a previous stage. It keeps its racial style that it de-leveled before. Again, I hope they change that, and it's really just a matter of keeping the buildings that were there. I really hope during development they change their mind on just radically switching everything. Because without purging a city, you would. I mean, even if they said in the example they gave about like the 51% is now elves rather than orcs, they didn't get rid of the 49% of orcs.
You're right. Did the 49% just go, yeah, you know what? Tear all of our buildings down. Go right ahead. Break my house, break my furniture, my children's bed over there. Yeah, go ahead, smash it up. Put down your elf buildings. Yeah, we're fine. That's cool.
We're fine with that. No. And I noticed people are like, well, what happens if an entire group wants to redo everything? You burn it to the ground. I mean, that's what happened at the Library of Alexandria, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was Greek. This is Arguba. Julius Caesar came in. We're like, we're Roman. Let's just burn it. Let's just get rid of all of it. Wipe that Greek trace off the face of the earth. That's highly in debate, by the way. No one really knows if that's what happened. But it's a common trend. I had to highlight that. Some people think that Alexandria was burned down like 300 years after Julius was even alive. But anyway, whatever. Node destructions. Nodes can be destroyed starting at level 3. There again, it is that if you got a node that sieges don't happen. You would have to wait for atrophy.
So you're making your node, you roll your dice, you're like, oh, I got a religious node, now I gotta let the whole thing fade away until I can try again.
Yep.
Bleh. Bleh.
It might make you move on, and it would actually
Give us...
Wait, are you sure we don't know what type of node it is until level 3?
No,
Part
we'll
of me thinks
know
you might
right
not.
away. We'll know right
Okay,
away
got it.
because of the
All right.
NPCs that show up.
Right.
Maybe it gives us a UI option when the node's created and it says, do you want this node, yes or no? If no...
Yeah, but
Well,
who's making that
makes no more
choice?
sense.
Nobody's
that
making
doesn't
that
make a whole
choice.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
But from a user experience perspective, it would make a lot of people happy.
And Ashes of Creation is in chat, by the way. They say, you know it, stage 1. Winky face.
You know what stage
Oh.
1? Yeah, it's going to be the NPC clothing.
Yeah.
Bunch of priests, bunch of military dudes.
So if you don't like it, just pack up and move. Leave.
I guess, but what if you really wanted that merchant thing on the river?
Well, then you have to
Well-
make that decision of whether or not you're willing to wait for the atrophy to happen to try to get a
Yeah.
different
But how do
node.
you tell everybody in that area to stop grinding in that area to stop
PK 'em?
feeding XP to the node?
PK 'em?
PK 'em.
Kill him.
What if
Or pay me.
PKing gives experience to the node?
Tell you what, if you pay me, I'll level where you want.
Fair enough. I mean, that's pretty much how
you
war
post guard and he enters the node and says, nope, you can't kill that boar. Nope, you can't trespass here. Don't kill that boar.
This
Don't
is
kill
the
that boar."
Kingswood, son.
This is the Kingswood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it.
Oh man.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I mean, happy day. Since Ashes is in chat, I really hope they're listening to this and reconsiders the idea of just switching.
I hope they were here from
entire
the start. I
city.
don't want to talk. We can do it in the after show. We can talk about our.
hammer a little bit, but hey,
Yeah.
So nodes can be destroyed at siege, stage 3, which makes sense. That's when you would do sieges. This is something that I want. Well, we knew about. I think we knew all about this because it talked about freeholds and material loss. But let's.
That was new.
Which
It
part?
was
The freehold part.
I could talk about this because they made the change, but this was actually highlighted because there was some confusion because before they said you were going to destroy it or that you had this time to defend, but the original didn't have that, but
Yeah.
they updated it to reflect what it really should have said. So
okay, gotcha.
if you own a freehold, if a siege is successful, then the node is brought down to level 0. And anyone who is a citizen of the node is no longer a citizen. Freeholds within the zone of influence are subject to a period of vulnerability. These freeholds can be destroyed by other players during the period of roughly 2 hours after successful siege. I don't really like this. I sort of do and I sort of don't.
Why the specific window? Why 2 hours?
It makes sense. You want to, you really want it to be there. But my thought of this is how many people are going to abandon a siege to make sure they can make it back to their freehold in time to defend
So
it.
if the siege is going sour, if you're standing there watching the siege happen, you're going, I don't know if we're going to survive this. I'm going to go protect my freehold now. Bye.
Yeah, that's essentially the Battle of Helm's Deep when Aragorn and Gimli are on the bridge. Instead of going, you're going to have to toss me, they go, hey, it looks like we're losing. How about we skip out of here and go protect our...
Let's climb that mountain and just leave.
Yeah, let's
scale
just
and go.
leave.
Oh, you're right. They did change it.
They did.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
It's
All right,
back
cool.
to what we... Excuse me, what we had
It's back to what we
before.
knew before. Yeah. Okay.
So you have 2 hours after a successful siege. Destroyed freeholds are subject to material loss, and blueprints for them are mailed back to the player to utilize for future placement in order to allow for the player to keep their freehold layout and structures. Once the vulnerability period is complete, the one thing we don't know about this is whether or not that includes stuff inside. I know they said that materials storage is gone. Yeah, and then Ashes says we did update the article for clarification. Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
Because this part was originally not in the article when it first came out, and it was brought up saying, "Hey, you've said in the past that we'd have time," so that got added back in. But I'm curious about furniture, like little things. Like, is that just destroyed?
Everything inside my storage containers, everything like.
Well, and the other
my
thing
backup
is,
armor.
where would it go? Because they're doing localized banking. If the city's a giant pile of ash, it's not like they could send it to your bank.
Do enemy players
guess I
get
can
to loot your
Mail it
freeholds?
to you? I don't know.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I don't know. That's interesting though. I think that I think that's a lot better because let's just say you lose, right? You defend it. Maybe you strike a deal with whoever the heck just whooped your butt, or I don't know. It's I prefer this as to the just flattening everything.
Mm-hmm.
According to this, I would assume the only thing you lose is building materials it took to actually build it.
Mm-hmm.
But that might be a clarification for later. Oh, ashes with it. If you destroy a freehold, all players can gather materials from the freehold's wreckage. This includes resources from the freehold to create the blueprint and any materials that were being stored on the freehold. You could take up to what you can carry and what your mule can carry. You can also come back to the freehold wreckage and continue to gather things, but there may be contention over it. There will be decay in resources, so you may come back and all the resources might already be taken. And of course,
you siege a metropolis, you successfully bring it down, guess what? You get to pillage the surrounding villages. You get to pillage and just take what you want. Take the stuff out of the chest, burn everything to the ground, put the stuff on the mule, grab some more stuff, just pillage for 2 hours after the node goes down.
And of course, the normal PvP related rewards if you end up fighting during. So your stuff can be siege. And thank you, Bob Doley, for gifting Ashes of Creation with a DCN sub. I expect you to use the dragon.
Hell yeah.
Emote. Whoever's controlling Ashes. There you go. Love it. Thank Bob for that. There it is. I'm so happy. Ashes of Creation has joined the shield wall. Beautiful. All right. Anyway, so once vulnerability period is complete, any remaining freeholds will exist under a grace period for roughly 1 week, where another node may take over the zone of influence of the freehold. So a nearby vassal node within a week has to get up to a village stage, if not already there, in order to incorporate back into a freeholder. I guess it's gone.
Fun. I can't wait.
I am so excited.
I am so excited to successfully
This is really
siege
cool.
a node and just go pillaging. Pirate style. Let's go. I can't wait.
I'm thinking of singing the song from Vikings
Question.
in my head.
Answer.
Yeah.
Who does the vulnerability apply to? Is it everyone?
Anyone who is within the zone of influence of that
Attacking.
of the no, the vulnerability is if you
Whoever
are
fails.
if you are attacking a node, okay, you're in a different node than that. So anyone who's attacking that node, if that node goes down, every freehold that is part of that ZOI is vulnerable to be pillaged.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that just means it's going down. Because I mean, think of it this way: if you know of any siege taking place, the incentive to go join that just tripled, basically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
If
They're
you're
giving you reason to want to defend your home. Because if that big boy goes down, your freehold is screwed.
Wait, no, that's not what I mean though. What I mean,
you mean?
yeah, you're right. You're right. They're giving you a reason to defend it, but more
Yeah.
importantly, there's an even greater incentive for everyone on the server in order
attack.
to attack, yes.
Right.
to take whatever you have in that freehold.
You want to be
Yes.
part of that free for all.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
What's preventing you?
Oh man.
So it's not you versus the node to me. That's you versus the server if you lose.
Yeah.
Even in the Nodes 2 video, Steven said that a siege of a metropolis is a world-changing event.
Yeah.
And to expect everyone and their mother to be there.
Okay, so if we've just incentivized practically every single person who's on that server, because a metropolis siege, we are aware, 6-7 days in advance when this is going down, those servers are gonna get slammed hard. If they're incentivized as far as we're talking about right now, the number of people who are gonna want to participate is gonna be mind-blowing.
Well,
GG servers.
No, that's true. I actually really like that. I like that aspect of it. What I'm more curious of was what happens with the lower levels. Like, forget about that. At level 3 and higher is when you can siege, right?
Yeah.
So that same rule, that same thing applies to all.
Yep.
Right? So from level 3 on, it's it actually seems very hard then to keep a freehold in place if you ever lose.
So how
No.
much stuff do you want to store in your freehold?
Let me correct that. It seems really hard to keep a siege or a freehold in place, period, because of the incentive for everyone else to attack.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what I'm trying to get across.
And that's what they want. They want the constant flow of power to shift throughout the server.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but if a metropolis is getting sieged, if I'm not I'm going just to watch the bloodbath, sitting up there with popcorn, like, oh, this is amazing.
Oh no, definitely. A metropolis, I get it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still concerned about the
A
lower
town, a city,
levels. Yeah, a town, city, every single stage that you can attack, this applies.
But
right?
the thing is, only people who are going to get notified of the siege are the people who are citizens of the siege and the attackers.
Mm-hmm.
So for a metro, that's going to spread like wildfire through
server Discord.
Yeah, server Discord stuff
Server
like that.
Discords.
A city and a town, maybe, but who's going to care as much? You're right.
If an attacking guild or an attacking town really wants to make sure that enemy town goes down, they will publicly announce their attack plans on the server Discord and get as many attackers in as possible.
Yeah, but that could also work against them, especially if they're a group of people who are not liked, and then the entire server rallies against them.
Revenging? Vendettas?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. Politics. Let's go.
You know, a guild sieges our node and destroys it. Okay.
Yep.
Now I have a vendetta against that guild or that group of players. And then they announce, we're going to siege the next city. Oh, I'm volunteering for the defenders immediately because of that. You know, that does create an interesting dynamic. We have to move on because we're already at an hour and we haven't even touched the next
much to talk about.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, the next thing we're going to be talking about is the developer diary. In fact, I have it already queued up, and we're going to play that in the background, and then we're going to talk about it. Starting it now.
My name is Tad Ehrlich, and I'm a senior environment artist here at Intrepid Studios.
I want a popcorn emoji.
You should.
Primarily, I am in charge of building the objects in the environment, building out the environments, placing objects, materials for the objects, and anything that is not a person or a creature running around, I take part in that. The goal of the node system was to make sure that every place was special and unique, to make sure that every node you go into will offer something different in a different way in a different place, and then have that same system facilitate all the races. Whether you go into a node that's human, go into a node that's elven, or one that's dwarven, each one will be supported by the system. And not only that, but also it provides procedural randomization throughout the entire world. So roads, bridges, all that stuff, it can all be randomized and made different every time you go through this area, and it builds up.
When you enter into a city, you're going to notice that the buildings, the placement of NPCs, the services that you can access are unique to that particular city. Part of the tool that Tad has been designing really has been to accommodate a procedural method by which each city can have its own identity.
One of the key things that I enjoy in games is a sense of discovery and a sense of exploration, and I feel like having a system that provides so much variety means that when I find a new place, it's always going to be special. You know, I'm always finding something new and different, and it isn't just the same cookie cutter stuff just strewn all over the world.
As a player, I've experienced a lot of MMORPGs, and it's interesting, every one I've experienced has the same type of railroaded structure that you go from quest A to B to C. And it's really, you know, something of my desire that I've had to create a system that would be dynamic in the creation of your world, to kind of mix you know, the civilization building aspect with the RPG element. I just think it goes hand in hand that if we extend this role-playing game mechanic into the development of cities, that creates really interesting gameplay that players can participate in. And part of what this node tool provides is for each city's character and identity to be unique to the players that develop it. part of the technology that's being developed here at Intrepid Studios really relates to our desire to create a world that is developed by the players. And this allows you to see in real time the changes that you're affecting on the world around you, and not just log into the same static game every day. This takes what the community is doing and it presents it in real time to the players so that they can see the effect of their changes.
We want to make it special for when a player finds a node and a node is grown and builds, that it's different from every other node in the world, so that they can claim that this node is their special place, and we know that someone on the other side of the world isn't going to have a node remotely like it. I would say the thing I like most about working at Intrepid is the fact that it's such a small, cohesive company. Everyone has to interact with everyone else. There's far fewer layers to get in the way of actual production. It's about making the product and getting it done and making it as good as we can. And I like the simplicity of that.
Nice. First off, couple things. One, I love they show us the gray box models. That's what we've been asking for.
More.
Love it.
Good.
Two, whose idea was it for the techno music? Because
I didn't mind it. It was chill.
no, I actually
Some good
really
music.
liked it. I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm just
It was
saying.
good music to see.
All right.
All right, just whatever. Yeah, cool.
One specific scene in there I was really happy to see. They showed a zooming motion with mountains in the background, and they transitioned to different randomized cityscapes in the same background. And they showed you that in the same spot, you could have a town that looks like this, or you could have a town that looks like this. And they showed you that in real time, and that was very cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
it was. This is fascinating, and part of what they're doing with this node tool, and I'm glad they showed this to us. This, and I know a lot of people after we were talking about it a lot in our Discord, DCN Discord, that when people saw this got people excited again. I mean,
Keep doing this for different topics every month, please. Like you said you were going to do, like, this is great.
This is beautiful. This was definitely a beautiful thing. The editing of it was top notch. Loved it. Steven, undo that top button, bud. You look too stuffy right there. You gotta loosen it up a little bit. You're wearing that polo shirt with both buttons all the way up. You gotta relax a bit, bud. That's all.
Also, most people won't notice this. The lighting for the interviews was perfect. The 3-point lighting was great, and the camera angles for the interviews were great. It was done professionally. So whoever was in charge of the actual production of the interview shots and things like that knew what they were doing with their lighting, with their angles, and with their perspectives. It was done very nicely. It looked polished and professional.
Yeah, it was good stuff. I think it's also, you said it perfectly. Once this video came out, this is like that excitement that we all felt like when we first heard of Ashes and we're getting back into
Kickstarter
it.
videos.
And it's generated that excitement again, and it's really cool to see. Like personally, within my job, I'm a product manager and I work specifically on tools and applications. And so it was really actually cool to see just a glimpse of these things in action on the back end. And even the fact that they have a tool for node creation and they're not, just plopping down assets and resources or whatever. But yeah.
And Ash's Creation might have given a little tip. Their next video is on the housing tool, as they said in chat. So
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
All right.
That's going to be a popular topic because housing is something that's very near and dear to a lot of people.
People love player housing in MMOs.
Indeed.
Love it.
Going back to the node tool. So the idea behind this node tool is it's meant to be built in a very modular way for procedural generation of cities that feel unique. This is actually something that... if people read it, it was noted in the article. If people read it, I read it, but maybe other people didn't. This is something that I'm actually somewhat concerned about. I know we mentioned it previously. Is how smart is this tool for procedural generation? Are we
talking about the terrain?
Yes, talking about levels and terrain. Is this tool going to be smart enough to create a city like Minas Tirith, or is everything just going to be terraformed into a flat space?
Let's not even go Minas Tirith size? How about even just having slight differences in hills and grounds? Is the house going to be built on top of a hill? Is a statue going to be sloping on a hill? Like, is it, like you said, is it smart enough? Even just minorly, we're not even talking just like mountains.
Yeah, no, like there's something to be said for hand placed things because you can build them in such a way that, hey, this is right up against the, you know, we built this. What we saw in the apocalypse is anytime it was a city, it was a flattened out area.
But like we discussed, if you're a civilization and you want to build something flat, like a tower or a building, you don't want a sloped building. You want a level floor in your building. So you're going to flatten the ground as it is.
If you're building it from the ground up, going backwards, if you actually, and I'm bringing up more Roman history here again, you ever wonder why Rome is just this sprawling mess? Because after Rome was burnt to the ground, they literally were like, listen, guys, we got to rebuild this city. We're not abandoning this. And everyone just built randomly where they could. That's how cities get the way they are. Yep. People move in, they build for themselves, and others go, oh, I want neighbors. You can move next to me. And that's where you get those multi-tiered layers. Later cities that Rome built, when they were military establishments first, they were built with bisecting lateral lines because that was what they were built for from the ground up by a cohesive group of people. But that's not the way older cities naturally form.
I think they can do both. In most of the world, flatten the ground, put the city in, you're good to go. I bet you they will design specific instances for nodes near mountains and nodes near water to have options to incorporate the mountainside and docks and stuff into the water. And they should design specifically for those zone of influences in those areas.
You're right. They would have to go in and essentially, instead of creating a flat space to build on, they create a multi-tiered approach on the nodes that they know are going to be next to a mountain.
On those specific areas, those specific ones.
I think we'll be able to probably comment on it as soon as we get into Alpha 1 for that. Yeah. And, you see the fruits of it. I'm a little bit skeptical only because I've been burned way too many times with the polymorph, breastplate?
The polymorphic breastplate?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna hide from you, and all of a sudden you're a barrel in the middle of an open field. You're like, yeah, this isn't obvious.
Yeah.
Or my favorite, when you become a tree in the center of a road, like a paved road, you're a tree. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
This bit me in the rear.
Tree on the third floor of a building?
Yeah.
I've
become a bush.
What's this wagon doing up here? Yeah.
Nice. Ashes of Creation. Okay, need to leave work and get dinner. Have a great rest of your stream and enjoy the content chat. Always saw. Thank you so much, whoever's controlling Ashes of Creation. Thank you for popping into our stream. Much love. Yeah, I procedural generation can be both a beautiful thing and a curse. Because a lot of people will use procedural generation to build out things like forest and things like that, and then go to hand placement later. Because you can get the detail that computers aren't smart. They're just not. That's where you get those procedural generations of a bush in a building, because it's a flat spot. But yeah, if they plan out the nodes consistently well enough and go, this is a flat space that we're going to use, great.
We just want to see more variety. We want to see the ones on the mountainside, the ones near the water, the ones on the hill.
I have flashbacks of playing Shadowbane, and that was a game where you could build your own cities and really had like a freeform building platform. But what did it do? You had to have a flat piece of land. They essentially created these spawn locations, not unsimilar to BDO in a way, where they have these spawn camps of monsters. That's where you would go. But then all the space in between was unoccupied by NPCs. That was buildable land. But as soon as you put down a castle, it terraformed it to a flat space, regardless of what it was before. It could have been a slightly rolling hill, and it became a perfectly flat spot to build the walls in.
Which in modern society is not unheard of. We do that all the time. But in an ancient society, you're not about to just dig up a mountain and move it.
Yeah.
Or dig up a hill and move it. You're going to build around it.
We have the tools now to move
we have bulldozers and they have magic and wizards. We keep forgetting the magic rule.
The magic rule, yeah.
The magic rule. If there's a problem, wizards will figure it out.
Yeah, right? They'll just blow it up. It's fine.
Yeah. Telekinetically move the dirt. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Magic bulldozer.
But you see this in things like, okay, in Shadowbane, whenever you laid a wall, it became perfectly flat.
Yep.
Great Wall of China, all
Not
over
flat.
the place. You know, they did not terraform that land in order to make that wall. It's
Is it reasonable to expect that this tool can do that, though? That seems a little more advanced.
I don't think it can.
Maybe not initially, maybe down the road in expansions and in patches, maybe.
And that's not saying anything against TAD. It's just really hard to get procedural generation to do things that act like a human. That's AI, and AI is not to that point yet. It doesn't understand the way that a human would.
Odds are the majority of the nodes are going to be on relatively flat spaces, and the handful that aren't, they might have specific designs for.
Fair enough.
Plans for the city. Yeah.
Yep.
I would guess so too.
Which only be a handful, which would make their workload smaller. And have multiple versions of that mountainside one, right? And you get a random one each time, but it's not procedurally generated.
But that's
Unless they're
where
able to.
I'm hoping they do that to a little bit, because how else are we going to get towns like Heidel and BDO where you have that sloping main road?
Big sloping thing.
I know it's kind of annoying at times, but it adds to the flavor of the city.
Adds character, adds
Yeah.
realism.
If Heidel was just
Variety.
built in this flat spot, then I'm like, all right. You know, you're going to lose some of that with procedural.
By the developer's own words, they don't want every node to feel like the other, right? That's why they're making this procedural thing. They want everything to feel unique, but if they're all flat, then it kind of ruins that.
Right. Okay. You know what? We're gonna go for a little bit longer of a show. We're at an hour and 15 minutes or so, and we're gonna hit this next thing, because otherwise we're not gonna have any time.
Lightning round, let's go.
The next thing we're going to show is, and I'm only gonna put it in the background, is the. This is where we were supposed to have our glow sticks, ladies and gentlemen,
Oh no.
but I forgot to buy.
I know what we're doing.
actually. Yeah.
I'm
You
glad
know.
Ash the Creation left.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the new video from the 8th of March, the live stream. They showed us some new Castle Siege footage, and I'm gonna have that going in the background. And we'll talk about some of the stuff that we wanted to highlight as we go along, but the footage will be playing. Then we'll talk about that. I need to pull up the tweet here now. Anyway, I actually really loved the Castle Siege. Everything about it. Except for the Jedi weapons.
I was gonna say the atmosphere, the rain, the time of day, the architecture. There's so much about it to love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know some people, and this is something I highlighted. If you look at each one of those weapons, those are weapons. Because we had talked about it, and I've seen people talk about it in discussion chats where they're like, well, maybe those are legendary items, and maybe they'll be hard to get when the MMO comes out. Those are all weapons that we get from the BR.
Yeah, I was like, great sort of haste. There's still blade. Hey, look, there's a
There's
Lifebringer axe.
The hollowed Lifebringer.
Hollowed.
Yep.
Hollowed. Yeah. Oh man, that's. You know what the shame thing is of this? I think if it was maybe on special effects or on effect usage,
Scalable.
that would I think that would bring down the lightsaber-ism, if you will, of it. But there's all just constantly glowing. It feels like you're running around with glow sticks, basically.
Yeah.
And that particular, because it's dark. Yeah, so
And they
my
glow
dance.
extra hard when you swing them. Like there's extra glow when you attack.
Yeah. And that's just it. We saw the arcane, we saw the hollowed, we saw the that's what it was.
Yeah.
That everything else except for the weapons.
Yeah.
I was just like,
If you can
ugh.
just just somehow block out all the bright shiny lights and stuff, and look at everything else, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Ashes of Creation, please add an ability for me to use default models on every character, so that way I could just use a standard greatsword and I can hide the gaudy cosmetics.
Yeah.
Please, thank you. That would be great. I would love that in BDO if there was a way that I could literally turn it off so I could just see the armor and weapons people were actually wearing rather than any cosmetics that they had on.
Yeah.
And
I see what you
really, people are like, well, that invalidates my purchase. You wouldn't even know I had it turned off.
Yeah, no one would know.
No one would know unless you saw
one would
me
know.
streaming or something and you're like, wait, where's my giant glowy sword? Well, I don't
Well, then
care.
don't stream snipe me.
Yeah, don't stream snipe
Stop
me.
chasing me down.
And I see the chat. Shirosaki says no. In BDO, all you'd see is a bunch of trees. That is very true because everyone's wearing dim tree, and that's all you would see. Fair.
Yep. It's a lot
Fair.
of dim tree armor running around.
That is a lot of dim tree. All right. So otherwise, I think it looks neat. It looks fun. They got to do something about that weapon glow. And I'm worried about it because that's going to be very prevalent in the game because you can get those with 10 minutes of play in the BD.
Yep.
Less if you're willing to throw down the money.
I don't want the MMO to be that glowy. I want legendary things to be legendary, but just that straight up neon glow. I get magic and all, but it feels over the top.
It's hard to if only legendary weapons glowed like that. Okay. But the problem is that's going to come from the BR, and therefore everyone's going to
Cosmetics.
have that
Yep.
right off the bat. It really, you
And
either
you know what?
Well,
If you start quote unquote season 1 of your APOC experience with that level of glow craziness, where do you go from there?
that's right. You have to keep building and building. Can you?
How do you make a legendary look different or better or more stand out-ish than lightsabers?
When you draw it, your screen just goes white.
Sound effects of like just random like trumpets in the air. He has a legendary weapon. The voice comes over the PA. Let's not. Yeah, let's not.
Let's definitely not. Anyway, we're going to move on through the rest of this recap because they talked about things we already knew about. Alpha 1 being pushed back. We all knew that. We're not going to go through it again. All previous dates have been pushed. We had talked about this a little in the past. I don't care if they don't give dates. I kind of wish they would, but the real issue wasn't the fact that they missed deadlines. It was an issue that they missed deadlines but didn't tell us anything until months after, and then went, oh yeah, by the way, that's going to be pushed back. Well, we kind of know that because it was supposed to come out in December and it's March.
Yeah.
Even if they don't do this, I posted it 100 times, but the Camelot Unchained top 10-ish, we really want to see a burner of what's being worked on. Vastly improved communication development content updates. So far, they have been doing great. There's already a lot of hate in the community, though, because it's rehashed stuff.
I don't care.
It's people complaining about, because there is new things, but I've even went to Reddit and I was like, listen, guys, these know your nodes are not for you. There is some stuff in there, so glean it because it is cool, but what's really there for is to condense all the myriad of different places that these things were talked about and bring it into a place where most players are going to go.
The dissidents in the community can't get over the fact that there are people who make this information and compile this information, not for them, but for new people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a perfect example, and I'll tell you an example when I was sort of miffed by this, but it was really a good change. When Elder Scrolls Online came out with their zone guide for Elsewhere, or that update, I'm sitting there going, I've been playing this game for 5 years.
Yeah.
What is a zone guide it's supposed to help you? It really is a good change for new players. Like, it highlights where you need to go. Like, I hopped on a new character and looked at it, and now I myself, having played for so long, already knew everything was there, but it wasn't made for me.
How much have I complained to you about the initial player experience of BDO and how overwhelming it is for new players?
Exactly. Now that you understand it, it's an amazing thing, but
I'm
that's
still overwhelmed sometimes.
Oh,
Just,
no.
Like, it's nuts.
It is. But if someone had released something new that made the game more understandable for you, it would help you as a player. But the people who have been playing since the Korea launch would be like, this is worthless. I already knew all this stuff.
Same thing with these nodes, articles, and all this stuff we're getting. We're very familiar with almost all this information, except for, like you said, the tidbits. But new people who have never heard of the game, it's invaluable.
Right. And new people who never heard of the game aren't going to go to the wikis. They're not going to go to our YouTube channel, maybe Crowjack's, but maybe not. They might come to ours later, but they're not going to go to these plethora. They're not going to go to
start the website.
Yeah, they're not going to go to AOC Dungeon. They're going to go to Ashes of Creation.
Yeah.
Like that's where they're going to go. So far they've really been doing a really good job. That I love that dev diary. That's really cool. And it's actually something that reminded me of WildStar's launch because they did these dev diaries and stuff like that. That was beautiful. All right. So lots of interesting questions regarding guild halls and how they will function. Let me go ahead and pull that up because I want to go over these questions real quick and talk about them. Again, please keep in mind for those of you listening, this is coming all the way back from the 8th. We're just trying to get this out because as of tomorrow, there's going to be a new one. So when you're listening to this on Monday, unless you're here live with all the 91 of you who are currently in stream, you're seeing it now live. Those of you who are going to listen later, there's already been another live stream, so we wanted to cover this. So we're going a little bit longer because of that. But there was some really good information that we wanted to cover. So one of the first questions is, what is the status of the Siege and the Horde mode? And I'm going to pull that question up. There it is. So Mark goes, we showed some of it in development with the Siege already, videos that we had seen. As Steven says, as we experienced some fundamental problems that needed to be fixed, that pushed back Siege and Horde mode. Work is still being done to prepare those modes, but it has taken a back seat compared to fixing the previously mentioned back-end and performance issues. It doesn't mean that art or design stopped their work, but we have a focus on back-end tech first to make those models available. One thing I want to highlight here, and I don't know if you guys watched the video that was done, the one that we had just shown, even though Crowjack's head was in the way. If you look down on their computer, that was recorded January 10th.
Yeah, the one scene.
Which was them building the castle siege, which was after was that after the letter? I think it was pretty close to the letter. Anyway, they were still actively working on that stuff into this new year. And actually, I want to see, do we have any... what's the status of the forums? So no solid date yet, but we'll let you know in advance when we have some information to share. There will be an FAQ with a lot of relevant information. Here's something I wanted to mention. They're working on a single sign-on solution.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know what that is, it'll allow you to sign on to the website, the game, and the forums using one solution, and it has to interconnect with everything else. If you've never worked in any type of IT before, they could bring the forms up, but why bother when it's not? If you're a forum person, I get you feel like it's essential, but it's really not compared to all the other forms.
You've got Reddit, you've got Discord, you've got other ways to do that.
So why bring up the forum just to have to try to implement this new single sign-on when you can have it as a playground to get it working, and then you're all set? They got to get that authentication. And I brought that up. I think I brought it up in one of our videos because someone's like, they can't even get the forms up for. And I'm like, but listen,
care. They don't want to right now.
They don't. If I were in their situation, knowing everything else that in projects down the line as and I'm sure Alpha's similar as a project manager, would bringing the forms up be important, knowing that a single sign-on solution is currently being worked on that would have to implement that?
Nope.
No.
Not at all. In fact, that's when I learned it was an SSO solution that they were working on. That's when I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense why the forums haven't actually gone up yet.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'd wait for. Yeah, I see chat. I'd wait for single sign-on, knowing that's what they're trying to implement. I don't fault them for it at all. I wouldn't touch it either. It would get backburnered in my project list as well. Yeah. So I always like to mention that. Why did you not provide any specific dates in the letter? More or less, they came down to we don't want to give dates because of us missing dates. Yeah. Star Citizen did that already. They got tired of giving dates, and now they just don't give any. I think that's a little bit of a misstep. Me personally, I don't like the no accountability because that's really what not giving a date is, no accountability. And this is just me.
Do,
go ahead.
You give a target, and say, we're hoping for this quarter. We're hoping
Yes.
for this. As it approaches, if that changes, you straight up tell your community, guys, things are changing. Here's why. We're pushing it back to this date. If you have to do it, you have to do it.
I send an entire project list for the next 3 years to my boss every single week. And I have dates for every project for the next 3 years with dates.
There is a commonly used phrase in the hockey world, the professional hockey world, when it comes to management. We have a 5-year plan that changes every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You've got your plan, but new stuff happens. You acquire this player, you trade with this player. All of a sudden, your plan has to change. Same thing with development and what you talk about. You have a plan, but it's going to change over time as new stuff happens.
Right.
Setbacks, partnerships, etc.
Correct. And I think the dates would just give people a sense of, if things get pushed back, then tell us why. We're pushing this back because we hit this or this new thing came up. Okay. I think that's a little bit of a misstep.
Reasonable people like you and I will go, okay, so long as it's well explained, but the unreasonable of us will, again, always looking for reasons to be unreasonable, will be unreasonable.
They're going to be unreasonable whether or not you gave it or not. They're going to be unreasonable because you gave no date. You're going to be unreasonable if you give a date. You can't make those people happy.
No.
But
Because, again, this isn't a pre-order. This is active development.
right. But they're also open development. So not
Yes.
giving it really. And I've said this before. Either they, piss or get off the pot, essentially. Like, if you're going to be open development, be open. I'd be fine if they closed doors and said we're just going to go into closed development and do their thing. It would suck to this show.
You know what we need?
Yeah.
The developers to go, we don't have a date for you, but on this date, we'll give you an update on our date.
Yes.
We don't have a date for you right now. We're looking through our back end. Everything's up in the air. We're not quite sure where we're at right now, but let's say the end of June, we'll give you an update to where we're at on the development and a potential date, a possible date.
Right.
That'd be great.
This was a question that's near and dear. And again, you'll be able to read the entire thing in the description below of this. If you're on YouTube, there's a link. YouTube hates hyperlinks, or tons of them, so I don't put hyperlinks on the YouTube, but I put one hyperlink at the bottom, which takes you to our website, which has everything in a beautiful little, HTML package that you can view everything. Please go there. Or if you're on iTunes or Stitcher, guess what? It's already embedded and you can just click it. It's beautiful. Are we going to see more heavy-styled medieval armor for melee classes? Steven, absolutely yes. Thank you, Steven.
Told you. Come on.
Jeff says you saw some of this in Alpha Zero. Steven, Alpha Zero was more a representation of after the fall of civilization, whereas in Apocalypse, you see before the fall. Even before the fall, you're going to see those types of heavy armor items. But I think what you have seen in Apocalypse has been more a representation of non-heavy items. There will be a wide variety of armor types because we have many cultures, 9 different cultures and different classes. I'm really just hoping for something that's more realistic than not.
Again, we haven't seen orcs. We haven't seen dwarves. We haven't seen really humans. It's a lot of elvenish looking stuff.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm hoping for armor that's more akin to The Witcher.
Yes.
Like realistic
Your traditional
looking chainmail.
fantasy. Yeah, 100%.
If there's, even BDO has that where there's high fantasy, but then there is armor like what I'm wearing that's traditional plate. Like there's stuff you can wear because I like it. So I'm glad that's the answer, and maybe we won't see so many Jedi weapons.
Or any.
Will gear matter in PvP? Yes, gear is a vertical progression. Gear is a good chunk of the damage output, but it won't be an end-all, be-all situation. I like that. Again, going into BDO, I don't know if you've ever been crushed by somebody who's like...
Oh, no, my first encounter, someone jumped me, I destroyed them.
Really?
Oh, it was so good. It felt so good.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. He jumped me, and I just wrecked his face. It was fantastic.
First time someone jumped me, I was dead before I realized they jumped me. I actually felt pretty good about it because the person messaged me because I was in an area that I probably shouldn't have been. And they're like, dude, I'm so sorry.
What are you doing here?
Because he's like, I thought you would have been better geared compared to in the area you were in. Because he asked like what my AP and DP was. And I told him, he's like, dude, I feel so sorry. Because he was like in full pen and tet gear, like really high up. He crushed me in like 3 seconds.
Nice.
I literally got knocked down and it felt like one shot. And he's like,
Yep.
the gear discrepancy in BDO is so strong that if you're near soft cap with like pen gear and anyone's below that, you like literally two slap them and they're done.
Yep.
And that doesn't feel good.
No.
Yeah, so how will guild halls work? Is it a separate freehold that you can build and customize or another system completely? And Steven says there will be two types of guild halls. A static guild hall that will exist within a node and a guild hall that can exist on a freehold. One of the ideas is that the guild of a certain level can get a guild-specific guild plot, which is very
That makes
similar to
sense.
BDO, to be honest, because there's guild houses in each city. The guild will have to progress to that stage, and the leader will own the ability to place a freehold. You will be able to build infrastructure that is specific to the guild, which enables the guild to purchase things by using guild progression points. Yay. Schematics to a certain hall that benefits the players, potentially produce guild armor or guild items that can be used in battle. I'm hoping guild armor will be a picture of an elf ear with like the big do close sign on it. Like
Yep.
the do not elf ear. I like it anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
That should have been our guild logo instead of what we have now for Hands of Fate. It should have been an elf ear with like a big X through it or something. I think there's still time to change that. Anyway, the guild can level that up. Freeholds can only be placed within a zone of influence. At stage 3 or higher, the guild hall plot may be raised to stage 4 or 5 requirement, but we need to test this first. So you can either build it on a freehold, or there could be in-node housing specifically for guilds.
I like that they mentioned that you can have guild hall specific freehold plots that your guild could use. Because my brain was visualizing the images and the videos we've seen of the size of freehold plots as of their last videos. I'm looking at that going, if you're slapping a guild hall on that, you're taking up the whole freaking plot. And then at that point, the person who owns that plot, can they have a second one? But they did mention guild-specific plots for this reason, which is good, which means each individual person can still have their own freehold, but the guild can have its guild plot.
Right. Final question that we're going to talk about before we end the show, because we're already at an hour and a half, which is a long show. How do you protect the city when players are offline from sieges, etc.? And this is something that we had learned in the nodes, but it's good to hear it again. There is a period of declaration from when you declare a siege to when it actually starts. The time between will depend on the level of the node, typically a day per level, but you'll get plenty of time to prepare. Additionally, a time window when a siege can be declared depends on the server time zone, so you won't have sieges during the night in EU, etc.
Yeah.
So if you're on an NA server, there's going to be a limitation based on when a siege can actually happen. I'm sorry, but if a siege is happening, I'm calling into work. I have Ebola.
Oh, if a siege is happening, I'm calling in to work. Yo, me? Yeah, I can't work right now. I'm streaming. Bye.
Yeah, well, lucky you. Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it, guys. I think that's going to be the end of our show. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We will have a post show, a short one, directly after this. So if you're watching live on twitch.tv/Dungeon Crawler Network, definitely stick on as we continue into the after show. And of course, if you are a patron supporter or a Twitch sub, you'll gain access to the post show after it's recorded, as we give that as a special thank you for helping support the show and the network. Anyway, I want to thank my amazing co-hosts. You guys were great. Alpha Soul at the_alpha_soul doing videos on the YouTubes. You've been doing a lot of the news recaps lately, so you should definitely check those out. Very informative and in a nice bite-size portion. Not what I do. I do at least 8-hour-long videos, and that's it. Yeah, way fun. And of course, Crowjack. Follow him everywhere at Crowjack. Twitch, YouTube, Twitter.
All of it. Yeah.
Everywhere. Yeah, check out his stuff. He's been doing amazing stuff, even in the absence of Ashes of Creation. Amazing guy to watch streaming. I watch him every time he goes live because he's just entertaining. And, of course, he does some really cool YouTube stuff all over the place. Check it out. You can follow everything that I do and we do as a collective whole over at DungeonCrawlerNetwork.com. There you find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon program at patreon.com/Dungeon Crawler Network if you want to help support the show. You can also help support by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes to let people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words. Sometimes they matter. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of From the Ashes, and we'll see you next week. See you.